Speaking is a skill, just like any other skill that you would have to develop. And you want to master that skill so that you are able to deliver the best value to every audience that you get to speak to.
Today's episode is brought to you by Pay Kickstart, the best shopping cart and payment processor in the business. Cut your transaction fees by going to servemaster.com/pay kickstart.
Are you tired of dealing with your boss? Do you feel underpaid and underappreciated? If you want to make it online, fire your boss and start living your retirement dreams now, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Serve No Master Podcast, where you'll learn how to open new revenue streams and make money while you sleep. Presented live from a tropical island in the South Pacific by best-selling author Jonathan Green. Now, here's your host.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Serve No Master Podcast. We have an amazing guest, Dr. Cheryl Wood, an expert at both getting gigs, public speaking, and high-ticket coaching clients, two subjects I know you guys are very interested in. And we're so excited to have you here today. Cheryl, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
That's so wonderful. I'd love to dive just right into it. A lot of times people have different definitions of what a high-ticket client is. So when you say high-ticket client, are you talking about someone who's paying every month or a large sum up front? And what kind of money are we talking?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from my perspective, I consider a high ticket client to be someone who's investing at the 5,000 and higher level. And you're right, that's relative based on each person's business. For some people, I have clients who their high ticket might be starting at the $2,000 level based on where they are in their entrepreneurial journey. So again, for me, it's the 5,000 and above level. Those are people who desire greater access to me and the resources that I have, and they're willing to invest at a higher level, but not only financially, they're also willing to invest at a higher level in terms of time commitment.
You find that there's a difference in amount of time or effort people put in based on the amount of money they're investing?
Yes, absolutely. And I was no different. Even when I started on my journey, the more I invested financially, the greater I had a commitment because I wanted that return on the investment. So I was willing to put the time in. I was willing to do the work. I was willing to show up for calls, even when they really weren't conveniently placed at times that really agreed or in alignment with my own schedule. I was willing to make things work, move things around. And it's no different with the clients that I serve. They are literally willing to move things around because they're like, I put that investment in, I've got to get a return on that investment. So they show up, they're at every session, they do the work, they're energized. I have two clients right now who are in a speaker coaching program with me. One is in Africa and one is in London. And they are literally 5 hours ahead of me. So when we're doing our training sessions, it's 1 a.m. in the morning, their time, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Sometimes we go until 3 a.m. their time. And they are always the first people there. They always do the work, the assignments. They come back and report, and they allow themselves to be held accountable. So yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people, the biggest fear is getting that first high ticket client. They're saying, oh, I need to have these certain things. What is my resume? What is my documentation? If I have past results, how can I say I'll help you? What's the best way for people to kind of approach that hurdle? I find that people often underestimate their own value. So I recently hired someone for a coaching call and they told me the price. It was so low. I go, just give me 3 hours. And I only use one of them and think about it. So I sometimes find people, even from corporate, I have someone who was generating $1 million in revenue a year. And she's like, oh, I do $15 an hour coaching calls. And I was like, why? Who are you getting? So how can people kind of know their worth and then demonstrate that they're worth kind of a coaching price when they're first starting out, when they don't have clients?
Yeah, I would say number one, having really clear and consistent messaging, meaning you have to have such clarity around what the problem is that you solve and who you solve it for so that you can speak the language of the individuals who are looking for that solution. Google has like 60,000 search queries every second of every day, which means people are looking for information. And not everybody wants a low level of information. They want a higher level, they want higher access. And so they have the ability to be able to invest at a high ticket price. But we have to believe, number one, that we're worth it, but then we have to have something to connect to that worth and that value. So the question then becomes, again, what is your messaging and who is it for? You cannot try to serve everyone. Number one, you don't have the capacity to serve everyone. Number two, you don't have the industry expertise to serve everyone. So get very, very crystal clear on your specific messaging and who that's for. Number two, I would say you do have to develop increased levels of confidence, meaning you're always confidently coming to the front of the room. And when I say the front of the room, whether it's you being on social media, for me, that's still a stage, that's the front of the room, or it's at a workshop or a breakout session or a virtual conference or a webinar. But you have to have the confidence to come to the front of the room and to speak up about what you know you're an expert in. And so many people are in the space of imposter syndrome and questioning whether or not they really are the authority, that they lack the confidence that shines through to the person who's on the other end. And I don't know about you, but I'm not following someone who is not a confident leader. If you're still questioning whether or not this is your expertise and you can help me, then I certainly can't believe it. So you've got to have confidence to back up what you know. And then I would say last but not least, the third part of that would be really having a clear roadmap. So what do I teach people? What end result do I help them to achieve? And then crafting some type of formula, process, system, or methodology around that so that they can follow the steps. Here's step one, here's step two, here's step three, so that they can achieve at least some level of what you've achieved and accomplished. Because that's what people want. When they see you walking in your brilliance and they're like, oh my God, I want to do that too. That's normally what people will feel. I want that same level of success or some level of that. And so you have to be able to say, make them believe that, yeah, it's achievable for you just like it was for me if you follow this roadmap. So a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners don't craft a very clear and concise roadmap that says, hey, I followed these steps and that's how I got here. And if you follow these steps and put in the same time, energy, effort, investments, then you're going to be able to get at least some level of this type of success.
When people are making a decision to hire a high ticket coach or someone in this range, what is their decision-making process? My experience as high ticket sales writer, very expensive, and I work very late clients, never look at my samples. When they make the experiences, if someone asks me to send them samples or let them talk to a past client, they never hire me. Like once they start doing that stuff, but people who go, yeah, fine. Most people buy it without doing any of that other stuff. It seems like they just buy from confidence. Is there something else part of it?
Wow, that's a great point. I recently, even myself, invested in 3 very high, very, very high level opportunities. And my belief is people don't have to be convinced that you are their solution. I believe before they ever get into a space where they're considering hiring you, to some level, they've already done their due diligence. They've already watched you from afar. They've already looked at your videos. They've already done some of your free stuff and gotten the things that you have that allow them to kind of test you, right? Taste test you and have sort of an appetizer. And it's simply, are they the type of person who is ready to make a definitive decision? A lot of people are not clear decision makers. And so they start to overthink and overanalyze and overprocess. And should I? Well, if I spend this much, is it really going to be worth it? And then let's be honest, some people have also gotten burned. Some people have invested at high levels and not gotten what the expectation was. And because of that, they're not even cautious, but they're afraid to invest at a high level again. So I think it goes to someone's mindset, and the mindset of my growth is connected to how I invest in myself. My growth is, and my development and getting to who I know that I'm destined to be, that's always going to be connected to what I'm putting in. And so investing in myself cannot be optional. It has to be mandatory. So if that person is not in that mind frame and that mind state, that my ongoing growth has to be mandatory. And even if I had a bad experience, I'm not going to focus on that bad experience. I'm going to take whatever I needed to learn from that experience and move to the next investment in me because I'm worth it. Those are the people who typically like, oh, I got to go pray about it. I got to go talk to my husband about it. I got to make sure can you send me samples? But people who know without a shadow of a doubt that their forward growth and movement and development is connected to what they put into themselves, they're the ones who are stroking the checks and swiping the credit card without, a whole lot of explanation necessary.
So I noticed from your website that you're helping women to find their voice and speak from stage. And that's a lot of the focus on your website. Does that prevent men from hiring you, or do men still come in?
That's a great question. No, I do. I always say I specialize in serving women and a few good men. I've added that dot and a few good men because yes, there are men who come through my programs. There are men who hire me, who bring me to their platforms. So it's just a specialty, right? That's my specialty because that's who I enjoy working with majority of my time in business. I want to serve women because I connect with the things that they want and that they desire. That doesn't mean I can't serve or help people outside of that scope of my ideal client, but my specialty, my time, my energy, my effort, my marketing is focused on a niche audience. So yeah, I have amazing men who come through my programs. And I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs also fail to realize is just because you niche down does not mean that you cannot serve people outside of the niche. I don't primarily target corporations. I don't target federal government agencies. I don't target nonprofits. And yet I get hired from all of those different types of organizations. And it's because I am amazing in a certain lane. And when you are amazing in a certain lane and you truly take ownership of that being your lane of brilliance, other people will notice and other people outside of your ideal client will spend their dollars with you.
So speaking engagements, corporate, kind of two types of speaking, where you're paid a flat fee and you come and give the speech and then you leave. And the other version happens a lot, at least to conferences I go to, is where you, at the end, they go, come to the back room, buy my program. So these different types of talks, can you tell me a little bit about the difference between the two of them for someone who's thinking about becoming a speaker and how they decide which is the right path for them?
Yeah. So I would say never put all your eggs in one basket, right? So I wouldn't say do one or the other. I would say do both and. Do paid speaking engagements and do speak to sell opportunities so that you're getting all of that revenue and all of those all that profit potential becomes a part of what you're bringing into your business. So for myself, I am a paid speaker. There are organizations that call me, they hire me. Hey, what's your speaker fee? Great. It's in our budget. We do the contract. They write the check. I go and perform and it is what it is. But then there are a lot of engagements that are outside of that scope of paid, and I have to come in and I have to earn my speaker fee. Well, I don't mind doing that because oftentimes, to be very honest, I can earn more when I have a speak to sell opportunity than when somebody pays me my full speaker fee. So I just imagine I'm in front of an audience of 200 people, and typically most speakers are closing somewhere on a lower end of 10 to 20% of the room. So let's say I close 20% of the room, and I have a product that's, $1,000. I always keep my trusty calculator here. And if I close 20% of the room, that means that's 40 people who are going to say yes to my $1,000 product or offer. That's 40 grand. That's much larger than my actual paid speaker fee. So for me, I don't box myself into one or the other. I allow myself the range of being able to do whatever fits for that event. So if it's a conference, which I get booked for a lot of conferences, and maybe they're only able to offer me an honorarium, which is just a small portion of my speaker fee, but they also allow me to come in and sell what I'm going to sell from the front of the room, then yeah, if it's the right audience, then that can certainly be a viable opportunity for me. So don't shut yourself out of potential revenue because you only want to play in one of those spaces. Do both.
So for someone who's starting out, how do you get your very first speaking engagement, and should you be free?
Okay, so first of all, I never use the word free because none of us work for free. You don't go to a job and not expect to get some type of payment. We don't work for free unless we've signed up to do some type of charitable work, right? So I, number one, would change that terminology. And instead of saying, oh, I'll do it for free, I'm willing to waive my fee. That's number one, because if you put that out there that you're free, you will always be free, right? We speak the things that end up manifesting in our lives. So you're willing to waive your fee. You should have a set speaker fee, and you should let people know, inform people of what that speaker fee is. Now, whether they're able to pay the fee or not, whether you're willing to negotiate the fee or waive the fee, that's a different conversation. All right. Number two, how do I find my first speaking engagement? Well, number one, you've got to have certain assets in place, I believe, that say I'm a speaker. So do you have marketing that says I can come and I can share my expert advice with your audience? Do you have a speaker one sheet? Do you have a bio that references you as being an expert who will come in and speak for organizations? Do you have any type of footage of you actually speaking? Now, if this is your first speaking engagement, maybe you're saying, well, how would I have footage if I've never spoken on stage before? Well, even though you've never spoken on stage before, the importance in getting your first gig is by being able to show people and demonstrate to people how you speak and what your delivery style is. So you should, at a minimum, have a customized YouTube channel where every week, at a minimum, once a week, you are doing a presentation to an audience, whoever you say your ideal audience is. And it could be a 2-minute to a 3-minute video. But what that does is it gives you something to be able to send to a meeting planner, an event planner, or someone who's going to be hiring the speaker to say, yes, I can clearly articulate myself and articulate a message. Yes, I am this type of energy. I'm monotone or I'm high energy. Yes, I'm able to enunciate and pronunciate. So someone who's going to hire you to speak on their stage has to have some vision of what you're going to deliver. So you must have those basic assets in place. In addition to, let me add 2 more things to that, a digital footprint. You've got to have some type of website. If you don't have a website to send me to, I really don't believe that you are a professional. And that's with anything, speaking or outside of speaking. And number 2, you must have a professional headshot, because those are the first things that anyone who's going to hire you to speak are going to ask for. Can you please send us over your professional headshot, your bio, your website, and most times a media kit or a speaker one sheet, as well as a reel, a demo or a reel of you speaking. And again, if you don't have that demo or reel because you've never spoken in front of a live audience, send them the link directly to your YouTube, your customized YouTube channel of you articulating a clear message. And then to actually find it, you've got to be inquisitive. So you need to be on something as simple as going to Google and typing in where you want to speak. So we use the words call for speakers. Those 3 words are what we use to search for speaking opportunities. Call for speakers, and then you can add to the end of that if there's something specific, a specific industry, for tech conferences, for financial trade shows, whatever you might be looking for. And what Google will do is it will do a search and pull up organizations, conferences, events that are coming up that are looking for speakers. And there's usually a page that you have to click on that provides all of the qualifications, if you will, of someone who's going to speak, and whether or not they're offering payment, whether or not they're going to cover your airfare, your hotel, your ground transportation, et cetera, et cetera. So at a minimum, start there.
That's amazing. I didn't know about that. So I learned something really exciting there. I want to go back to earlier in your answer, because you said so many great things, but you talked about your reel that you send in. And my question is, how much of it do people actually watch? When I was 21, I applied to a program and I sent in a 45-minute video and they go, we just watched the first 3 minutes. And I was like, well, but it was so good. You missed the rest. I mean, I got the opportunity, but I wonder about that. And also, especially for corporate events, is it actually the person whose name is on everything that's in charge, or is it like their secretary or an intern who's actually doing most of the decision making when they decide what to bring to that person?
Yeah, great question. So in regards to the reel, keep it brief. I mean, you know how busy you are, right? And I'm busy. I run an international $1 million enterprise for speaking and coaching. I have a husband. I'm nurturing marriage. We've been married for 21 years. We still like each other. Amen. And I have 3 teenagers. So my life is busy. But I'm doing all these things to change the world, and I'm trying to look for speakers that I can bring in. I don't have 45 minutes to watch your full presentation. Just give me a good 1.5 to 2 minutes where I can see how you engage. And also, let me say this. Another mistake that I find that a lot of speakers make with their reel is they do almost like these still photos, but I never hear you actually speaking on the photo. So it's someone doing a voice over top of still photos that they've inserted into the video. That doesn't share the experience with me of what you're going to bring to my audience. I need to hear at some point, even if you have those still photos with a voiceover, and then at some point in the video, it stops and it actually is a real live clip of you speaking and I can hear you speaking. That is acceptable. But it's very hard for me to make a determination if I never get to hear you speak on the video. So keep it brief, keep it short, because people live busy lives, decision makers live busy lives, and they don't have time to watch your 20-minute, 30-minute, 40-minute presentation. Next, as it relates to corporations. So again, that's really not, I don't submit directly to corporations, to be very honest. Most times they find me. I've spoken for NASA. I've spoken for Capital One, their cybersecurity team. I've spoken for Verizon about 6 times. But the beautiful thing is they're able to find me because I'm amazing in my lane of brilliance, which is communication. So even though I don't pitch them, I don't target them, they're able to find me because there is what I call a splatter effect. Like almost when you paint a wall, I could paint this wall behind me. I could put down a little tarp. And I don't care how cautious I am. I promise you, I'm going to find a splatter of paint on another wall or a splatter of paint on my chair that I'm going to have to clean off. So when you're amazing and focused in one lane, there will always be a splatter effect of other people who will see your brilliance, who will see your bright light and say, oh my God, we've got to get her or got to get him into our audience so that she can bring that same energy or that same whatever the topic might be. But for me, every time I am contacted, I've never been contacted by anybody's assistant. I am always contacted by either the person who is doing the final decision making, or I am contacted by that person's right-hand person, which normally is not necessarily a secretary or assistant, but it might be the director of XYZ who works closely with them and is helping them to plan out that event. Even when I just closed a deal for speaking with a big company last week, and the person who was able to get me to the decision maker is someone who has been to events where I've spoken before, not corporate events, entrepreneurial events, because this person happens to have a business on the side of their full-time gig. So you just never know who's in the room. You don't know what big companies they work for, even when you're serving outside of a space of corporate. And so this person works directly with the decision maker who is hiring for this big company's annual event. And sure enough, we signed the contract and I'll be their keynote speaker on February 22nd.
Very exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So for someone who's starting out, they often think they need all of these things. One thing people always say, because my area of expertise is, of course, authorship and books, they go, and I say, when people are hiring you for a speaking engagement, they don't read the book. They never read the whole book. It's so, they have this, I'm like, they just want to see that you have a book. Yeah. They very rarely, at least in my experience, no one ever reads my book. Yeah. Because when I sent people my demo reel, I wrote a really successful biography of someone who's not my race, about growing up 80 years ago. Very challenging for me. I had to do a lot of research. And I was like, you would ask me about that because it was the hardest thing I did. The son hired me. And that was the scariest I've ever been, because when you're writing someone the legacy of their father, it's so important to get it right. And it was a really great project, but no one ever asked me. That's how I know they don't check my reel. They never check my demo. I was like, you would ask about that because it's so different to write something totally different than my experience. So I'm wondering, it's more about having, and not, people are so worried. Most of the time when people ask me, they go, do you have samples? I go, yes. They go, okay. And they don't even ask for them. They just want to, during that process where it's your confidence more than anything else that matters. When people are hiring you, or when you're in that process, what are the things people check or ask about that they're really just kind of seeing what your answer is more than anything else? And the things you need to have in place, like having a headshot. Whereas if someone's never been a speaker before, they don't know that question and they get asked, they don't know what to do. What are some of the critical things people should know about that's part of the hiring or decision-making process?
You know what? I would say, yeah, it is your primary marketing materials that you should already have in place. Honestly, I've never had a company do much research beyond that. So when they ask for things, are you able to quickly send it in? Or are you like, okay, well, I'll get that to you in about a week because you never got the headshot? Or if they ask you to direct them to your website, you don't even have a website to direct them to. So it's really about being ready so you don't have to get ready. So even if you've never been on stage before, get the marketing assets in place now. Go and get the professional headshot that speaks to whoever you authentically are and who you want to magnetize. So have those professional headshots. Have a website in place that speaks to what it is that you actually deliver to that audience. Now, here's where a lot of new and emerging speakers sometimes are challenged. You might have someone who they really want to become a corporate speaker, but everything about their current website says, I am a faith-based speaker. Well, if your website says faith-based speaker, the corporate company is not going to hire you. So if you're going to do both of those things, you have the faith-based speaking, that's great, but you want to do corporate speaking because you have something of value to add into that industry, then make sure you have a separate website to send them to so that they're not looking at your, oh God and amen and hallelujah. That has nothing to do with what corporate wants. But if you're going to teach corporate because maybe you have some specialty in communication or team building or peak performance or attitude or whatever it is, diversity, have something completely separate, a completely separate website where they never have to see the faith-based website. And make sure that all of your marketing assets speak to who you want to hire you. If you want corporate to hire you, you should have a corporate headshot, not the headshot with you with the big cross. That's going to be a disconnect for them. So it really does work that way. But the things that primarily they're going to always look for and look at, the headshot, they're going to look at the website, and they're going to want that bio, and they want it right away. Sometimes you can get away with not having a speaker one sheet. I don't always have a company ask me for that, but they always ask me for my bio, my headshot, and my website. And they always look at it because then they come back and say, oh, we looked at your website. Oh, and we noticed this thing. So I just had the company that just hired me last week. One of their questions was for the final decision maker who was going to write the check was, well, I noticed on your website, you specify that you specialize in teaching and training women. Are you able to still incorporate your message for men and women? Right. So they definitely go to the site and they will look at your videos. That they will look at too, because they want to get some idea of what your delivery style is. So just make sure all that stuff is already prepared and ready before you even get the first opportunity. Don't wait until you get it. And now you're trying to rush and scramble and get it together, because by then they're going to pass the opportunity on to somebody else.
So as far as the website, a lot of people think that you need a lot of depth. How many pages do you think you actually need? Like, do you think they are looking at 5 pages or 20? Like, how in depth do they go? Because that question came from your homepage, right? Like, are they going deeper than that, or are they just looking at the homepage?
No, I find they go to the homepage. They will click on, if you have a tab that says, my speaking topics, they might look at that. And if you have a tab that says videos, they're not spending a lot of time, but they are going to read. You're probably going to read your bio, which is there on your either your homepage or a bio page. So yes, they'll look at what's on the homepage. They'll look at your bio. They're going to look at any videos that you might have posted and your topics, whatever you say that your most frequently requested topics are. They're going to look at those things. Outside of that, they're not spending 40 minutes looking at your website. They're not going through tab by tab and they're not doing that. They don't have the time to do it. Just like they don't have the time to look at your whole 40-minute speech.
So the assets people need, they need the website, they need the one sheet, they need the headshots. How can they learn, or where can they learn what goes into a one sheet and what they should have on a website? Where can they learn that information?
Invest in a coach who can teach you. Like it's really no other way to say. People don't realize how much of an obligation speaking really is. I think people see people who do it well and they be like, oh, I can do that. But there's a big difference between talking and speaking. Anyone can get on a stage or any platform, live or virtual, and just talk. And most times when you just talk and there's no planning, there's no preparation, there's no guidance, you're talking about you. It's not really leading the audience anywhere. And it almost becomes rambling. But when you speaking is a skill, just like any other skill that you would have to develop. And you want to master that skill so that you are able to deliver the best value to every audience that you get to speak to. So if you want to master the skill of speaking, which includes what are the assets and what should be in my speaker one sheet, hire someone who is an expert. Now, I can just ramble quickly to you some of the things that you want to make sure that you have in your speaker one sheet. You want to make sure you have a brief bio. You want to make sure that you have some frequently requested topics or your topics that you prefer to present. If you don't want to call it most frequently requested, because maybe you've never spoken on stage before, you want to make sure if you have spoken on stage before that you have at least 2 or 3 testimonials from someone at a high level in that organization who can speak to the value that you delivered to their organization. You want to have some type of photo, whether it's a headshot or a full body shot, preferably a full body shot, because they already have your headshot that's going to go into their marketing materials for the event. And then, of course, you want to have the information on how they book you. If you happen to have a book and that book should connect to what it is that you specialize in, I would encourage you having some graphic of that book as a part of your speaker one sheet, because oftentimes you can leverage that book number one, to get booked and hired to speak, but also that organization might want to get copies of that book as a continuing education component as a part of your speaking. So I'll give an example. When I spoke for NASA just last year, not only did they hire me as their keynoter for a training session that they did, but also they invested in 125 copies of my book that would support the presentation as a continuing education piece of material or resource. So if you have a book that connects you, so if you speak on leadership, have a book on leadership. If you speak on communication, have a book on communication. Whatever the thing is that you speak on, you need to be the authority, as you mentioned earlier, by having a book that the company can also pay for and invest in for either all the attendees or even if it's just for their VIPs, but a lot of organizations will do that.
That's amazing. I learned a lot today. I'm thinking a lot more. I used to be on the speaking circuit. Now I live on a small island in the middle of nowhere, so I haven't done speaking in a while except online, but this has been really nice for me, kind of getting me re-energized about the topic. So I really appreciate it. Where can people go to learn more about you, spend time with you, and learn more about kind of what a speaking website should even look like?
Yeah, so my website is CherylEmpowers.com, and I'm on all social media platforms at Cheryl Empowers. So I hang out on Facebook and Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. You can even find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Cheryl Empowers. So just everything is Cheryl Empowers.
That's amazing. So I'm really excited. I know a lot of people are going to appreciate this. Thank you so much. And I'm really glad that we finally got to meet.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you so much. And be safe.
Thank you for listening to the Serve Master podcast. We give away amazing business bestsellers every single month. Head over to servemaster.com/free books to see what we're giving away this month.